All right. In today's session, what we're going to be doing is a really lovely combination. We call it counterposing in yoga, which is a combination of doing forward fold, forward bending poses, um, along with hamstring strengthening poses. The hamstrings mainly we're looking at the back of the thighs. And yeah, so for today's session, I have a very nice setup here of props. Um, so we'll be starting with just a lying down check-in, and I've got that set up for Supta Baddha Konasana, lying down on a bolster that's slightly elevated and some blocks on the side to support your knees. If that doesn't suit you, then of course you can use just straight leg pose lying down. But the important thing is to do a little bit of a check-in so that we're all on the same page. And let's go. So once on your mat, on the props, and cross-legged will do with this, as well as that kind of butterfly position of your legs, Baddha Konasana. I've got a couple of blocks to support the outside of my thighs or the outside of my knees. And then when reclining, if you just lift your tailbone, I've got an extra blanket at the end of the bolster, which kind of creates a stair-stepping for the bottom of my spine, and that is very lovely too. So a couple of movements of moving the tailbone away from the rest of the spine, and then just letting all of the body drop into the soft props and relax. So we'll get active shortly, but before we do, it's important just to stop and in this check-in, just see how you're traveling, body, mind, emotions, the whole of you, or the way that we look at a human being through the lens of yoga on the several levels that we exist on. So first one, the simple checking in on the physical body from head to hands to feet, and taking pause just to do that, noticing any points of tension, and also where you feel quite relaxed at this time. Often the shoulders can be adjusted to feel a little bit more comfortable. And the belly muscles softening. And then once the body's relaxed, it might be easier to observe your breathing pattern at the moment. Is the cadence of the breath smooth? Is it regular? And where do you notice the breath in your body with the greatest clarity? And in this short check-in that we're doing, the breath is also intertwined with how our energy is in our body. So when you woke up this morning, did you feel like you were brimful of energy? Or did you think, this might be a hard day to get through because I don't feel very energetic at this time, or somewhere in between? So knowing your body, knowing your breath, knowing your energy level will help you as you proceed through the session. And what is happening in your thought activity? Is there something in particular? This is often the case that calls to you. particular thought or associations of thoughts. And whatever thoughts there are, you could perhaps put them to the side for the duration of the class. We can come back to them later, or they may dissipate. Thoughts are often associated with how we are in our emotional state. So notice that too. Is there a particular tone of your body, mind, or a mood that you're in? And we can complete our check-in there. And move on from Baddha Konasana, knees up, 2 feet on the floor, and just moving the props a little bit to roll to the side and come up to a seated position. And having thought about or noticed your breathing at this time, let's focus on it with a particular breathing exercise that's quite simple. I'm going to sit on a prop and sit in kneeling position, but you might want to sit cross-legged. Even this setting up that we're doing is really important in terms of posture, because once you are sitting straight, we know from the practice of yoga that it's easier to breathe. So take time to find your most upright but not uptight position. Shoulders relaxed, face relaxed. We'll practice the Hu breath. If you turn your palms upwards and rest them lightly onto your thighs with your elbows back towards your waist and your fingers curled lightly. So you can count on your fingers for 10 cycles of the Hu breath, simply inhaling through the nostrils and exhaling through pursed lips. With that sort of sound and connecting with the whole of the body on both phases of the breath. So let's begin with that simple way of breathing in your own time with an inhalation. The main message is to keep the breath easy, comfortable, in no way stressful. Along the way, the breath becomes more integrated, and you may feel it more on the inside of your body, in the inner ribs, in the inner diaphragm, in the belly muscles, deep, and even perhaps the pelvic floor. So we all have a different pace for breathing, a different way that the breath is received. So whenever you get to the end, then maybe palms downwards. And we will be moving on to a reclining position. And all we'll need shortly is a bolster, a block, and yoga strap. Now I have a new prop. It might not be new to you. You might be the owner of a ball, a small ball, but not too small, and a little bit squashy, which can be used in the place of your yoga block. So in lying down like this, lying down on your back with your legs bent and your feet on the floor, we're going to take that item, which is either the squishy ball or a block. I like using this ball because it's more forgiving than using a block between the thighs. Also, you can sort of see when you press against it that the shape of the ball changes. So here we are. There's the block on a mid-range between your knees, or you're holding that ball, and bringing the feet close together. And then merely drop the knees to the right side. The left hip lifts a little bit, and over to the opposite side. I'm going to do a slight head roll along the way. But the main thing is to keep the opposite shoulder anchored. So we can do this just to keep the attention on the breath, with inhalation bringing the legs up and exhalation bringing them to the side. Let's finish over there on the left side. And once your knees are upright again, lift one foot, the other foot off the floor, and have the thighs closer to your chest, and still gripping against your support against the ball or the block. When you do that, feel the leg muscles switch on, especially around the outside of your hips. So you're making your hips more compact here. And then we'll proceed, knees to the right, knees to the left. I'm just going a little bit at a time to do that check-in for my lower back and see how accommodating it is to doing rotations. A good way to wake up the back, but just slowly. And once more right. And once more left. And let's see whether we can make this more of an abdominal movement. Just simply having the knees directly above the hips, not towards your chest, and the lower legs parallel with the floor. So now I've transferred most of my weight to the base of my spine and to the sacrum, and also making that small movement right and left. Draw the lower abdominal muscles towards the floor from the pubic bone to the bottom of your sternum, the xiphoid process. and hold firm through the abdominal area so you're not going a tilt too much. Finish on the left side, back to center, and without any prop between the legs, bring your legs and your feet together. One foot off the floor, second foot off the floor, thighs coming closer to your ribs. Rest your hands onto the knees with your arms just passive. Merely for apanasana here and working that abdominal digestive area. Move your knees slightly away from you to straighten your arms, and then knees towards your chest. And let's go back and forth, just treating the lower back very tenderly in those movements. It's very helpful and will be helpful through the session if when you bring your knees towards you, you're still keeping your sitting bones towards the floor. There's a whole series of muscles that switch on to support the pelvic area when you do this. Exhaling in and inhaling out. The shoulders are relaxed too. Let's make the breath a little more protracted towards the end of the cycle of movements, if you can, if it's not stressful. And then finish with that exhalation and inhaling and bringing your feet back to the floor. All right, let's inhale and come all the way up to standing. Oh, why don't we warm up the hamstrings while we're on the floor? I think this is a good position to, and time in terms of the practice to do this. So take up your yoga strap, bring your feet onto the floor near to your buttocks, and extend out the left leg, and bring your right knee in to slip the belt on your right foot. When I was first learning yoga a long time ago, I would do these to stretch my hamstrings at the back of my thigh because I was very athletic and very tight in the backs of my legs. And now I do a combination of straightening and bending, which is good for the joints of my knee, the joints of my hips, and also combined strengthening and stretching. So let's do this for a few cycles, alternately bending and straightening. And the more that I push up against the resistance of the belt, the more potential there is for that strengthening part of the exercise. And let's pause with the leg relatively straight. Small knee bend is okay. And then do some rotations. So let's just rotate the foot one way and then the other way. Flexing up, flexing down. These are good preparations for standing poses. All right, and then holding your leg relatively straight and your foot straight, transfer the belt to your right hand, left arm out to the left. Your left arm and your left shoulder are the balance for keeping that left side of the body firm as you track the right leg to the right. If you look at your right foot here, we can also do the leg bending, pushing your foot out against the resistance of the belt again. pose sequence is called Supta Padangustasana, maybe 1, 2, and 3 variations. Make sure that you're holding that left hip firm. And one more, stretch out, and then back to center. Let's go the other way. And as you take up the belt into your left hand, and the right hand, right shoulder blade anchoring your right side, and then tracking the leg a little across to the left side. And even here, a little more awkward, but bending and straightening. And hopefully this is good work for your knee, for the flexibility of your knee, and a really good stretch for the ITB, the outside of your right hip. Back to center, and then let's take a moment, take pause with the right leg straight back on the floor alongside its mate, and then merely let the legs drop out and feel the results of what you've done on the right hip, right leg, right foot. All right, let's start all over again, and we're going to keep that right leg nice and firm, the top of the right hip towards the floor, and then catch hold of the left foot. Here we go. We're not rushing, and why would we rush or need to rush in yoga? And there we go, alternately bending and straightening. This is so good on my tighter leg. So I'm not asking to do something that it's not ready for. We're just preparing the leg, as I was saying before, for some standing poses, but just what it needs. All right, and then see what movement there is in the foot. Can do a rolling movement. Not so easy with the belt to do circling, but still can. And then finally, flexion, pointing the toes up, pointing the toes down, back and forth. Getting some little clicking in this ankle, you might too. And then let's go laterally, left leg out to the left. And then let's keep the right arm, right shoulder blade, right leg, right hip, very firm as we track the leg out. And then in and out. And keeping the attention very much enveloped in the movement. And that is a bit abetted, aided by the breath. Let's go opposite direction, opposite hand. First there's the stretch, which is almost always noted, can't miss it. And then there's the movement through bending and straightening. All right, in that good work that we've done, and both legs on the floor, let's leave pause again, just feeling into the body, consolidating. Maybe the legs and the feet and the hips feel a little bit lighter. And now we're ready to come up all the way to standing. All right, let's work a standing pose called Uttanasana. And I could use the ball, the squishy ball here, or my block. If I'm to use the block, I have it just above the knees on the inside of the thighs and stepping the feet in close. Like I said, I'm partial to this new prop. And pressing the thighs through the inside thigh muscles are the adductor muscles. So we're very grippy on the inside and also turning the thighs in. So keep a softness behind the backs of your knees. Your legs are relatively straight. And then let's bring the arms forward and up for the dive into forward fold. And we're only going to come halfway down. So once your hands are below your knees or the top of your shin bones, get a good grip there, straighten your elbows, and then telescope your chest forward. Feel like in leading with your breastplate that you can lift it a little bit, and that gives space to bring the shoulders back. All right, and then let's drop into forward fold as much as you want at this point, or as much as your body allows you to do. And in having done that, soften your knees a little bit more. Knees over your ankles. We're going to come up with a big sweeping gesture. So still bend your knees more. Inhale, bring your arms forward and up. And exhale, arms down by your side. Notice whether you lost the awareness of the inside of the thighs. Keep the thighs pressing in from the outer thigh bones, the outer hips. And here we go again. Inhale, go up. Exhale, go forward. Stop at that halfway point. Sometimes this is called concaving your back. So feel your shoulder blades come closer to the spine and towards the front of the chest. Lifting up. And then draw the abdomen up as you fold forward. As I was saying, as much as your body will allow you at the moment. Bend your knees over your ankles, sweep the arms all the way up, and exhale down. One more round with a little bit more pace. Inhale, go up. Exhale, go down. We're stopping. Opening up the chest forward. Drop. Knees bend, arms come up. And exhale down. Now let's see what happens when we take the block or the ball away. And without that support, this is why we use props. Can you feel the imprint of the prop there? So as though you still had it there, and using those parts of the body that you've engaged so well. And let's move on to chair pose. So in the sweep of your arms, you're going to bend your knees and come into a small squat. Inhale and bring the arms up. And we can make this an even more efficient pose. Make sure that you still feel the adductors, the inside of the thigh muscles. Lift your tailbone a little bit, and then see how you go in balancing to lift your heels. So there's a heel rise onto the balls of your feet. Good balance practice, and coming all the way up on that rise, and exhale, arms down. All right, we'll do two more. Maybe you want to go in your own time, taking the small squat. When your arms are up, they're reaching out as well. And let's try the toe balance. What's your balance like today? Are you having a good balance day or a bad balance day? Or somewhere in between? Good. Can you hold your heels up and still avoid holding your breath? And good work. Good. And then Let's move into our supported tree pose, Vrishkasana, supported near to the wall. So I've got my right side facing the wall, one side or the other, and then I'm going to balance on my left foot and bring my right foot up. Where? So inner ankle, inner calf muscle, inner knee, inner thigh, somewhere along your leg. And then the knee turned out. I'm going to wedge my knee in against the wall. This is such a good preparation for the hip muscles and the outer thigh muscles. So from your balancing position, you don't have to worry about falling over. Bring your hands into a prayer position in front of the chest, and then, if you like, extend the arms up overhead. One long line of the body, and drawing the right foot into the left thigh and the left thigh into the right foot. And then releasing, and other side. So let's take the simple approach here, which is using support, so that we can switch on and fire up muscles that will help us hold balance. So the left foot now you've raised into position, and it's pressing against the right thigh, and then pressing, rebounding back against the left foot. And feel that kind of grippiness of the muscles that supports. Changing our center of gravity when we extend the arms up completely. And then as you release, considering moving slightly away from the wall for free balancing, either back to the wall or side on, and free of the wall. Always good to pick out your focal point. Something on the floor in front of you or out into the distance. And we'll take just a few moments, see if we can use the same muscles we use to hold the pose without holding the breath, as I was saying. All right, last side. Take your time. There's an expression which is haste makes waste. If you rush too much, then you tend to lose your balance, and then it's hard to retrieve it. Also, it's hard to do this while you're talking. All right. And then once we're done at the wall there, give your legs a bit of a shake out. And let's move on to the mat and take a wide position. And have a block handy. And when you are in this particular yoga standing pose, Prasarija Padattanasana, you're taking up as much space as your body will allow you at the moment. That is challenging enough, but not so much that you lose your stability. So you might sway your hips a little bit and feel like you've landed well into your both feet. Adjust your feet so that they're pointing squarely forward. Lift your toes a bit and stretch the spaces as much as you can between them. With your hands onto your hips, then, and just looking out onto the horizon, lift up the chest, lift up the breastplate, and feel your footing again. So without looking at it, just feel where you're standing on the ground, on your mat, and give a little push out to the outer arches of your feet. So you might feel now that the inner thighs are getting a stretch there where they were contracting before. And then, like we did in Uttanasana when we were standing legs together, bring your torso forward and partially down towards the floor. Keep your hands there onto your hips, but lift your elbows and feel into your back body where your shoulder blades are. In your lean out, bring your weight towards the forefoot without clenching your toes. So hold the chest high, using your core muscles, draw the navel up, and maybe even the pelvic floor here. And then inhale and come all the way up again and up to standing. So I've let my elbows go wide, but if I bring my elbows closer to each other on my back, I've actually given my back a little bit more suppleness. Let's go forward and stop at the halfway point again, shifting the balance towards the forefoot. Feel the backs of the legs in a really strong stretch from the back of your knee to your buttock bones. See if you can tilt your buttock bones up just a little bit more without dropping the belly muscles. All right. And then flex your knees a little bit, inhale and come up. And then take up the block in front of you and just have it at an arm's length distance in front. From standing, keep your left hand onto your left hip, take your bow forward, bring your right hand onto the top of the block. Turn to the left, looking to the left. Then release your left hand and bring it onto the center chest. Make your turn come from there now. So lifting the right side of the chest, turning to the left. Beautiful. Back to center, looking down. Reverse your hands. Left hand onto the block, right hand, right hip. A little rotation to the right side, turn. And then hand on heart. And turning, just reminding yourself to turn from the left side a little bit more. Good. And then last one of these, right hand onto the block, left hand onto the heart center, turning left. Now keep looking at your right hand. You're going to have a slightly different rotation for your neck. So keep looking at your right hand, and then left hand fingertips to your left shoulder. Turn a little bit more, lift that elbow. And if there's space for you and your shoulder adjusts to this easily, extend up the left arm and feel like your arms are extending away from each other in that vertical plane. And you're still looking down. And then left fingertips to your left shoulder. Drop that elbow, turn back, completely rotate to the right side. Let's go looking down, looking at your left hand, right fingertips to your right shoulder. Lengthen that left arm a little bit. Lift your elbow. I'm so tempted to go into my pattern of looking up. And then right arm up towards the ceiling. Long arms stretching away from each other. There's a cross stretch. And then right fingertips, right shoulder, and turning back. Both hands onto your block. Lift up your chest. Bend your elbows a little bit. Bring your hands onto your hips. Press firmly through your footprints. Inhale and come all the way up. And that's about time to step back in and all the way back to center. Good. All right. We're going to do a little bit with seated poses. And before we do that, we'll work the backs of the legs in some baby back bends. So let's take just the block. I'm going to go back to using my little ball. I don't know where these can be purchased. I was gifted a set of these. I'll keep this handy. Take a lying down position on your mat where you're belly down. All right. When you're first lying down, the back naturally goes into a little bit more, I can feel it in my back, more of a lumbar curve. So I want to draw my tailbone not towards the floor, but away from the rest of my spine, and then my top spine away from my tailbone. Keep your legs slightly apart, and then press the tops of your feet into the floor. And as you begin to lift your knees away from the floor, you might begin to feel also the tightening through the back legs, the upper back legs, right to the buttock bones, and then feel your buttocks engage as well. Let's work with shoulders. So rest your forehead on the mat, and then bring your arms straight back towards your legs. So keep the legs grounded, pubic bone pressing down. And without even having to lift your head, lift the tips of your shoulders away from the floor. And when you've done that, feel the shoulder blades gathering in towards the center spine. And then release them. Take a moment in consolidating, just let go everywhere. Maybe a little hip rock. And then let's work shoulders and shoulder blades again. And tips of the shoulders come up. Feel your collarbones nice and wide. And then the upper back muscles engaging. And then let go. All right. Take a block, or if you have one of these balls, I'll use the block because I think they're more common in the prop collections. What you're going to do is a movement for strengthening the hamstrings. So if we take this block behind your one leg or the other, it doesn't matter, and where the tip of the block rests is in the crease of the buttock. I bend my leg, and I'm going to have my heel catch the other end of the block. So at this point, I've got the block held between the heel and the buttock. Anchor both hips, the front of the hips, and then lift the bent leg knee off the floor without tilting the pelvis. You're going to do that with the help of the glutes and also the hamstrings. Make sure that your shoulders are still relaxed here. They don't need to tighten up. And then give that a rest. It can be quite strong, or you might even end up cramping a little bit if those muscles are stiff. And then one more try at that, lifting up. without a tilt. So if you looked at the back of the pelvis, your pelvis, you would see that the buttocks are in a line. And then let it go and let that leg flop back and just rest. I'm going to use the ball because I can, but now you can see how the block is used. So the same thing with the ball at the lower buttock. I'm going to grip it with the back of the calf muscle or the heel. And there's the lift off. You might find that you're weaker on one set of muscles than the other, and that's not at all surprising. It's kind of the way that bodies line up after a while. And then give it a break. So we don't want the right leg to be going towards the left side. You're merely lifting the thigh and the knee off the floor, squeezing against the block, squeezing against the ball. And then releasing and letting the right leg rest onto the floor for a moment. And let's complete what we're doing with a couple of bridge pose variations. So lying on your back, keep those props near to you. And by all means, if you need to, bend the legs in a little bit. This is like a reverse child's pose. Rock a little bit on your back of your pelvis. And then we'll continue with the support of the block right between the knees. It's such a great way to do these bridges because it means that you're going to use the inner thigh muscles. You're also going to track your knees nice and straight so there's no torquing of the knee joint. Feel the weight evenly on your both feet, pressing down. And then begin to do your lift off a little bit. The pelvis comes up as much as your body will allow you at the moment or as much as you wish, but keep the pressure on against the block. Feel your hips compressing a little bit more as you come down, and then enjoy rolling the spine down from the top to the bottom, appreciating each vertebra along the way until your pelvis is resting. Now let's do that one more time with a difference. Still hold the block. Bring your heels up and tiptoe your feet in closer to your buttocks. Then on the balls of your feet or the backs of your toes, tilt the pelvis up, begin to roll up and coming up and driving the pose this time. Maybe that's too strong a word, but that's the idea of it, from the backs of your thighs. So I've just released my hands so I can palpate and feel where those muscles are switched on, from the backs of my knees to my buttocks, and lifting up and gripping lightly against the block. And then we begin the roll down, but the heels are still up and all the way down. And resting. Once you're touching down like that, just put your prop to the side. And let's try one more thing here before we move on to some forward fold positions. Plant your 2 feet. Feel the outline all around your feet, right foot and left foot. And then as you add pressure, begin your lift off. I think I heard somebody use the expression, put your brain into your buttocks. So all of your intelligence into that pelvic and hip area to lift the buttocks using the backs of your thighs. And then can you balance the weight just onto your left foot and lift off your right foot? And bringing your knee a little closer to you, we're doing on relying a lot on the left glute and the left hamstring to lift up your right leg. Then neatly folding your right foot back to the floor. Pause. Without even taking a break, balance the weight between the 2 feet before you start all over. On your upper part of your back, on your shoulders, the weight's even. And then stamping the weight onto your right foot into the floor. Bend up your left leg. Feel the back of the right thigh engage and extend up your leg. Or not, or just keep the lift with both feet on the floor. That's up to you. And then folding under control back to the floor and lowering the spine a little bit at a time and back to the floor. All right, and nicely done. We're going to take just a kneeling forward position, child's pose. Counterposing your back bendings. And very gently, got my elbows down, elbows back towards the knees, and just easing back. Got the block handy. I'll bring it in and rest my head onto the block. All right, so we're just counterposing there, but let's not stay. Let's move on to the forward fold positions. So take your prop that you can sit on, just so you've got some support in sitting up well, sitting up easily, with your legs straight out in front of you. I have your yoga strap right there too. And we'll just explore Dandasana to start with. Once you're seated like this, you could discover exactly where you're sitting. We don't really think about that very much in the course of our everyday life, but it's probably a really good thing to address. So you're sitting towards the back of your pelvis and your and your tailbone. Are you sitting on your sitting bones? Or are you sitting towards the front of your sitting bones? If I change my relationship of my torso with that pelvic tilt, bring my pelvis, my torso forward, I can gravitate towards the sitting bones. So having made that discovery, we can also just draw the buttock flesh out and back a little bit and rock slightly on the sitting bones. And then there's the legs straight out. Let's capture them with the belt, with the belt around the feet. If I wind on a bit of the strap just to straighten my arms and draw the tension on the belt, it will also help me keep a nice lift through my spine, a kind of graceful elongation. And then increasing the tension on the belt may allow you to come a little more forward. Now we're stretching at the back of the legs in those muscles that we were contracting earlier. And if that's a bit much for you, then keep your knees a little bit bent. It'll also allow you to create more forward fold and take the heat off of the hamstrings. But for me, it feels really good at this point to have my legs pretty straight. Dandasana. And then let's move on to left leg straight, right leg bend. Right leg bends out to the side. And when your legs are placed like this, it's a little bit like tree pose position. So your right foot near to your left thigh, but not underneath it. And then let's take up the belt and do what we can do in Janu Shirsasana is a rotation and a rotation as well as a forward stretch. So I'm holding the belt onto my left foot, drawing tension onto the belt, but still very much upright and turning away from the bent leg. Now you can see I've got a good opening here, but if your groin muscles, right leg feel tight, support it with a block. You find that the muscles relax much more. So you might move up the belt a little closer to your foot at this point. Right arm relatively straight, left arm behind you. Keep your chest high and light as you turn. And then adding the folding forward movement, you might reach around to the outside of your, so I'm dropping the belt for the moment, outside of your left leg or even outside of your left foot, and drawing the trunk outward. It's best not to think of downward so much as outward from the pelvis. Good. And then retracting and bringing both legs straight through Dandasana. And take pause. We don't want to give this pose short shrift. It's a lovely, simple pose all on its own. Sitting still on your support on the front of your sitting bones, and then bend the left leg out to the left. Good. And just initially finding that way of through your own body, through the needs of your own body, straightening the leg as much as you can or as much as you want to through the back of the leg, or keeping a little knee bend. As we pull the tension on the belt, then we can do a little bit more of that. Keep the left leg relaxed, supported if you need to, the groin of the left leg soft. And taking up the belt just into your left hand and bringing in that rotation. I think of turning my navel to the right instead of having it straight forward. Keep relaxing the right leg. And then finally moving without the belt to hold the outside of the leg or the outside of the foot. And forward folding. Feel the crease at the top of the right leg deepening. Good. And then let's have a release that takes us back to Dandasana. Without the belt this time, just keeping your hands by the sides of your body. Let's be more reliant on the strength of the back to support us. And bring your arms straight forward and up. And as the arms lengthen, feel them connected with the outer shoulder blades. And maybe you can get the sense that your arm stretch incorporates all of the side body and even down to the sides of your waist as you're stretching up. Good. And then as you lower the arms, relax your shoulders and take your legs out wide to the side. In Upavista Konasana, or this commonly known as the splits, I've noticed I keep slipping off of my support, so reestablishing the platform that I'm on, and then extending the legs. Same as before. If you need to, keep a knee bend. Otherwise, extending out through the heels, and then forward fold here. And you're very much in hamstring territory here. So keeping a little knee bend may preserve your hamstrings and avoid any kind of strain there. Otherwise, it might feel really good, and especially with the strengthening exercises we did to extend the legs fully from the buttock bone to the heel. Good, and coming forward, and a sense of buoyancy as you lift the chest. So still not downward, more outward and forward. All right, pull right up. Let's stay where we are. If you need to, and really give your hamstrings a relief, bring your legs in a little bit. And then let's turn towards the right leg. Both hands on the floor, one on each side of the leg. And there's our lateral movement. Press your hands lightly into the floor. Lift your chest and lengthen the frontal body from the lower torso to your shoulders, and extend out over your left leg. Take a breath or two there. I haven't mentioned breathing for a long time, but of course. And then let's go all the way around, swing around to the opposite leg. And let's count some breaths there. Long inhalation followed by long exhalation. That opposite buttock is going to lift off the ground and the hip come a little forward. Don't worry about that too much. Just one or two more breaths and rotating. And then this is going to feel so lovely, coming back up, right? Lift up the inside of your knees using your hands and bring your legs all the way straight out. And prepare for child's pose, supported, and it's going to lead us into our relaxation. So the kind of supports that I have for a comfortable child's pose, I have a small bolster, but you can use a block instead and another bolster on top of it. Now, child's pose, we know, can be compacting the backs of the knees quite a lot. So if that's the case for you, you could be a little elevated and just sit on the very bottommost end of the bolster. Or sitting back on your heels if that's completely comfortable, because we're going to stay for a few minutes. I'm calling this child's pose, but it can also be called turtle pose, and then you'll understand why as we go along. So as you stretch yourself out onto the bolster, yield the weight of your body. I have my head turned to one side, and I tend to have that as my dominant side. But at some point, you might want to turn your head the other way, or be in a forward head position, your forehead supported. So coming forward with my arms, it feels quite nice to wrap my arms around the bolster in a kind of bolster hug. As you breathe in and out here, there's that lovely sense of your front body breathing you. Through the breastplate, through the diaphragm, through the belly muscles, all completely supported by the soft prop. You might want to take a few inhalations and exhalations, inhaling through your nose and then exhaling through your open mouth with a soft sigh. And then, having probably closed your eyes, create this visualization for yourself that the shape of your back is like that of a turtle, like a turtle shell. And that you can even breathe in to the shape of that turtle shell when you inhale. Maybe it feels like it lifts a little bit and has more space. And then just releasing on the exhalation and letting that shell drop. And in particular, begin to imagine the organs that lie beneath the back muscles and are protected by the rib cage. And right at the bottom of the rib cage are the bottom of the kidney organs. And oftentimes they're kind of overweight, worked, or even slightly depleted. So on your inhalations and creating the space in the turtle shell, and then breathing into the kidney organs too, as if to puff them up a little bit on the inhalation. And sitting atop of the kidney organs are the adrenals, little glands that are small and kind of spongy and energize, create energy through adrenaline. We could think of soothing those organs too, creating space for them as you inhale and as you exhale. Creating softness and relaxation. And let's go just a few more rounds like that. Inhalation is full and space making. And exhalation, grounding, settling, softening. And little by little, we're going to release from the pose. So turning your head front and center, bringing your hands there to support you, and very gradually and almost reluctantly coming up to a seated position. And moving the props to the side. Probably very healthy for your legs to stretch them out in Dandasana again. Healthy for your knees. As you extend the legs out, you might just have a look at your kneecaps, make sure that they're right in the center. I can give them a little shake, they move slightly. And then let's go back to sitting and sitting together to complete the session. And once seated, then rest your hands onto your legs, relax your shoulders, let them just drop. Keep your elbows close to your ribs. And we always want to refresh this gesture of bringing the hands together in prayer position so it never becomes perfunctory. So it's a gesture of gathering the energy of our practice, of funding that energy where the hands are over the heart center, drawing that energy in for ourselves, creating a deep well of goodwill, recognizing our own goodness. And from the depth of that well, sending it out to all and everywhere, all sentient beings. And we say namaste. Thank you.